All right. So with that, I want to thank everyone for marching through the last 3 weeks of getting into the nerdiness of the rabbis and how it helped them actually to have a vibrant spiritual life as they were connected deep into the textual geekdom of their faith in God and their knowledge deeply of the Torah and its literature. Last week we covered cosmology and Psuke de Zimra, and we started to peel back the layers of the meaning behind Baruch She'amar. Now today in our last class, we've done this, from latest to earliest. We're going to the beginning of the rabbinic day, to the absolute beginning. Sylvia, did you have a quick question?
I can hardly hear you, Matt. I can hear everybody
Ah.
else fine, but I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Let me see if I can fix that. Can you hold for just a moment? Let me plug in a better microphone, which may work to our advantage if I can get it to wake up. Let's see. Almost.
You're loud and clear with us, with me.
I
Anyway.
am. Can you turn up the volume, Sylvia, to your device? Is that possible? I'm not sure if that.
So what I'm getting is that Alex is really loud and Matt is hard to hear.
Yes.
Okay. I'm having trouble adjusting the sound to get both of you at a reasonable volume.
How is this?
That's great.
Much better. That's perfect.
I'm just doing a basic input volume, turning up the input on this. All right. Without further ado, now, and thank you for the getting the tech stuff done early together. Without further ado, we're going into the earliest parts of the rabbinic day, how the rabbis wake up in all of their nerdiness and faithfulness. And to get us in the mood for perhaps perhaps one element of their experience, let's watch this very short clip from a movie from '07. I mean the recent '07. All right, can everyone see?
It's over. The nutcase is gone. I am successful, I'm powerful, I'm handsome, I'm happy. Successful, powerful, handsome, happy. Oh!
Get it out, son. It's the beginning of wisdom.
How did you get in here? I'm calling the cops.
Oh, no need. Look. There's one right there. Right there.
Officer! Carjacker in the car! Carjacker in the car! Oh!
Careful pulling out. Pedestrian in the crosswalk.
Oh! No! Oh, no! Take it off.
Morning, Chief.
Ow! Good morning, Rita.
You almost scared me to death. What's wrong with you?
Nothing. It's just sort of a weird ride-in.
Weird how?
It was just a weird ride-in.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying. Here's your mail and your schedule. Okay. Oh, and they finally fixed the phones. My new extension is 614.
614.
Yeah, 614.
Right.
You want me to write that down?
I'd rather you didn't.
Good morning. Hey, Long came through with that seat on the House Resource Committee. You stuck in your thumb and pulled out a plum, my friend. Also, the new congressional plates just came in. Jean Plates now. And Alex at the Buffalo office had her baby.
Boy or girl?
A little boy, and here he is. Just as cute as a button, not bad for such an ugly woman. Weighed in at 6 pounds,
14 ounces.
How'd you know that?
Lucky guess.
Whoa! Hot off the press. It's a joke. Here are your plates, sir.
Those are rock star plates, man. You can park anywhere. You can't be sitting in a chair. You've got a committee meeting in 5 minutes. Come on, BMIC, big man in Congress. Evan Baxter, the shark on the move.
House Resources Committee is now in order. Chair recognizes the Congresswoman from Tennessee to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under me, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How long do you want to do this, Tom? I've got all eternity.
It's over. The nutcase is gone.
All right.
I am
Let me
successful,
just-
I'm powerful, I'm
there we
handsome,
go.
I'm happy. Successful.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to pause it. And all done. Has anyone seen this movie before, Evan Almighty? Okay, I'm giving some thumbs up. Right, so this is the sequel to Bruce Almighty. Evan is having an experience that God is coming to him and telling him the same instructions from Genesis 6:14, which are to build an ark. Yes, to build an ark. And he has this experience, of course, of God being everywhere. So talk to me, just to open, because this is, we're beginning, the rabbis start their day with a sense of the omnipresence of God. Tell me, what is our character Evan's experience of God's omnipresence, and how is that similar or different from perhaps other experiences of God's omnipresence that we have in Judaism, or indeed for yourself? So let's talk a little about the character's experience of God being everywhere.
Well, it's very literal in this movie. I mean, Morgan Freeman as God keeps showing up in his car, in his office, in his whatever. And then these animals start following him around. This is really hard.
Very much, and it's meant to evoke this bizarreness, right? I mean, it's meant to, he's seeing, this character of God everywhere. But what's the emotional valence of him for that experience of God? That's certainly a feeling of he's shocked, right? He's shocked and surprised. What are other feelings that, at least in Jewish sources, you feel we associate with being in the presence of God?
God-fearing, vacus, trembling.
So we might have a sense of fear or trembling, right? To be very
like the
guardian.
name, what the Haredi name actually means. That
Yes,
that most people
Haredi.
don't know.
Yes, we're like
trembling
that.
in front. Yeah.
Okay. Other possible feelings in the presence of God. Good.
Not a rabbi in sight.
Awe is different from fear, so I would say awe.
Okay. So one could feel awe, which is a sense of more like wow. It's not necessarily like wow and awe and like, I'm
Bigger
terrified.
than wow.
Yeah.
It's bigger than wow.
Like relational wow.
Yeah.
Yes, you feel like this is something, God is something grand. I feel compelled by the presence in a beyond everyday sense. So we're going to explore first. Oh, go ahead.
Could be ecstatic.
Could be ecstatic, right? Even with Hashem b'simcha, serve the Lord with joy, right? We're in the presence of God. Oh, this is fantastic. He's here. All hail the King. L'chad odi likrat kala. That's what the Hasidim feel when they're in the presence of God. Like, oh, it's so we're what a joyous thing. So, the only thing you feel in the presence of God is not neutral. That's for sure. So here we're going to spend the first half of our class looking at sort of a little anatomy of what the rabbis might have been feeling, and that will lead into how they started their day, and then we're going to do, at the end of the class, a real deep dive, the way we've been doing in terms of the intertext, the allusions in the text, to one blessing of the morning blessings that you probably, if you're in a traditional synagogue, daven at about 90 miles an hour, but that actually has perhaps a really deeper valence that's very relevant today. Okay, so now we will do what we do in the old country. We will do the sharing of the screen, and I will use this joke until no one laughs. All right, so it's already here, and I'm putting it in the chat again. Please,
it's a good joke, Matt.
It's still good. It gives me an excuse to put on a Jewish accent. As I say to people, I don't speak Yiddish, but I play someone on television who does. Okay, now we will. There we go. Can you see on the screen share? Yes, morning blessings, walking in the presence. Can I get someone to read, and I will scroll down. This is the first text of the Shulchan Aruch, that is the major Jewish legal codex in Jewish history. Came out in the mid 16th century by Yosef Karo. And this is the first thing he has to say in his whole section on prayer, which is Orach Chaim. So whenever you see these little allusions, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, the OC, which is very appropriate because this is the Jewish collaborative of the OC, so a very prayerful place, Orange County. That whenever it says Orach Chaim, that means that's the prayer. That's the calendar of the year and it has all the prayer stuff in it. Can I get a reader for this opening text? I see Elaine's hand.
Always happy to read.
Please.
Do I get to fix the gender, or do you want me to leave it?
You can do it. That is your choice as the reader.
Thank you. Okay.
And I'm just going to say that the opening line, just so you know, that's all that Yosef Karo, the author, wrote. The thing where it says Rema, that's Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, who was the Ashkenazi rabbi who glommed on his comments to the Shulchan Aruch, and they together became like the most famous rabbis in all of Europe because the Shulchan Aruch went totally viral in terms of halakha. So the Rama is the Ashkenazi authority, and he has way more to say than Yosef Karo, but we'll see. Elaine, take it away.
One should strengthen oneself like a lion to get up in the morning to serve the Creator, so that to be the one who awakens the dawn. Rema, at least one should not delay beyond the time when the congregation prays. From Tur. Rema again, I have set Adonai before me constantly. This is a major principle in the Torah and amongst the virtues of the righteous who walk before God. For a person's way of sitting, their movements and their dealings while they are alone in their house are not like God's way of sitting. God's movements and God's dealing I'm reading it wrong. For a person's way of sitting, his movement, I'll leave it, and his dealings when he is alone in his house are not like his way of sitting. His movements and his dealings when he is before a great king, nor are his speech and free expression as much as he wants when he is with his household members and his relatives, like his speech when in a royal audience. All the more so when one takes to heart the great king, the Holy One, blessed is God, whose glory fills the earth, is standing over him and watching his actions, as it is stated. Will a man hide in concealment and I will not see him? The word of God from Jeremiah. He immediately acquires fear and submission in dread of God. May he be blessed. Whoops, too far.
Oops, sorry.
Where go?
And sorry, I was trying to
have to get my eyes back.
And five lines up from the bottom, and is ashamed.
Right, thank you. And one should not be ashamed. May he be blessed, and is ashamed of him constantly. And one should not be ashamed because of people who mock him in his service of God, and should also go modestly. And when he lies on his bed, he should know before whom he lies, and as soon as he wakes up from sleep, he should arise eagerly to the service of his Creator. May he be blessed and exalted. I've heard know before whom you stand, but I have never before seen know before whom you lie. That's interesting.
Yes, right? So what is according to the Shulchan Aruch, and really the Rema here is expanding, what is the feeling how do you describe the feeling one should have in the presence of God?
This scene sounds like the Shema, a loose version of the paragraphs of the Shema, where it tells you how you should behave and what you should do when you lie down, when you sit up, when you walk, when you and so on and so forth. The idea of this, how I translate this. And I just think of the Shema. I don't think of anything before that, because again, the earliest prayer when you get up, it's for Kriyas Shema, you rise, and you say that. I know we say before Shema, but again, before we wash our hands and one thing and another. But in the Orthodox world, that I think sounds as though they're taking pasukim from the Shema. That's what it sounds to me.
There's
where I'm coming from.
Yeah, there's a sense of that same witnessing of God that's happening in the Shema. Sylvia and then Elaine.
Yes, absolutely. But also, I feel like it's generalized exhortation to know that God is always there, and whatever you do, He sees you. Whether you're lining up, and it is your business to remember that and to act accordingly. So it's kind of like it's awe-inspiring, but it could be like, oh my God, so to speak. With no fun.
So it's awe-inspiring and could be quite certainly a major effect on one's self-consciousness. Elaine, go ahead.
Well, so what it's saying, I think, and I apologize for the problems in reading because I didn't read ahead enough to see where it was going, that you have one way of dealing with yourself and with other people, but you need to have a special way, a special attitude, a special approach when you are dealing with even a secular king, let alone the Melech Malchei Hamlachim, the king of the king, right? The God, the great king, the greatest king, whose glory fills the earth, as we say in the Kedusha. So I think, and to be aware that God's presence is always there. That's the quote from Jeremiah, right? That you can't hide from God.
So there's a good sense of being that one's behavior is likened to the way you would be polite before. Let's say you went and saw, the king or the queen, right, of whatever principality, right? You wouldn't show up as a shlub, that there is a difference between your private space, how you might behave, and your public space. Well, looks like all your spaces are public to God. That you're walking around with the king. If you think it was this king would be important, you got the king of kings in the room with you all the time. Or the queen of queens, if you prefer, in the room with you all the time. It's a profound sense of presence going along with this. Other comments on this sort of the emotional space of the rabbis in this moment. Is this a good thing that God's around all the time? Is this a terrifying thing? Is this an awkward thing? Is this a joyful thing? Some of the things we talked about when we were talking about Evan Almighty. Susan, what do you think?
Sorry, but I joined late, and so I just came into the conversation.
That's quite all right. It just gives us an opportunity to welcome you.
I was just learning.
I think, did Susan's thing?
I think Susan is frozen.
Oh, I think she's frozen. God bless her. Susan, I know you were trying to say something, but I missed it. And when you get unfrozen, we really do want to hear it. Very good. So for now, I think it's just really fascinating to see that the rabbis are expecting the Jews are living their lives as if there's someone there with them all the time, that there isn't really a sense of privacy, which perhaps is a bad thing. But here in the source it says it gives a relativization of all the other people that you might be worried about. It's that you don't have to worry about being, mocked by other people for how you behave, right? Because you should go about modestly because you're in front of the ultimate king. So in a way, it's a sort of a deflection from the people pleasingness or the wondering what other people think space that human beings can so easily occupy, especially in social media. I wonder if we should have an app like, don't remember, God is your main friend on Facebook. But for another time. Now, I'm going to move us forward because interestingly, there's one place that it seems like Hashem, or at least Hashem's minions, will not go to find you. Can anyone guess what place that is?
The bathroom.
The bathroom. All right. So we're going to spend a lot of time in Brachot 60b, because Brachot in the Babylonian Talmud, the 60th page and the second side, is really the rundown of all the blessings that the rabbis say associated with going with the seams of the day, going to sleep and getting up. And before they go to sleep, they go to the bathroom. So, the Beit HaKisei, the house of the throne. There you go. Can I get a reader for this text in English? Matthew, would you mind reading?
Where are we reading from?
From the top, one who enters the bathroom.
One who enters a bathroom says, "Be honored, angels, honorable holy ones, servants on high. Give honor to the God of Israel. Leave me until I enter and do my will and come back to you." Abaye said, "A person should not say this, lest they abandon him and go. Rather, he should say, guard me, help me, support me. Wait for me until I enter and come out, as this is the way of man." Upon exiting, one says, "Blessed, who formed man in wisdom and created in him many orifices and cavities. It is revealed and known before the throne of your glory that there were one of them to be ruptured or blocked, it would be impossible to survive and stand before you."
Thank you, Matthew. So,
Matt, it goes into, this is Asher Yatzar, which
yes,
is
this
is
is
when you go to the when you leave the toilet, or you call it in America the bathroom,
the loo,
because you know the literal translation Beit HaKiseh as the terminology is here is not what we call bathrooms. So
no, it's the throne room. It's the throne room. The Beit HaKiseh, the house of the seat.
Yeah. Because you know, American translation is different from the English translation, or European translation. But it goes on to, as you say, it opens the vessel. So it tells you that the function of going to the toilet is a blessing to be able to actually go to the toilet, and it's a bracha. So you have to be thankful for being allowed to perform the bodily functions and various other things on a day-to-day basis.
So absolutely, there is a great sense of you need to be thankful for your body being able to go to the bathroom. I think that's pretty, it's pretty manifest in life, because when you can't, it's not good, right? There's a great truth to the blessing here. By the way, just so you notice, and Alex sort of pointed this out to us, if you take a siddur, pretty much every single one of these morning brachot, these morning blessings, are straight out of the Talmud, with very little change, if any at all, to their language. So if you want to find Asher Yatzar, Elohai Neshama, the blessing for your soul, the Shema al Hamitah, the Shema and an extra blessing when you go to sleep, and all of the morning blessings, you can find them pretty much in their entirety in this daf, in this page of Talmud. So that's just a good awareness to have, that the siddur really borrowed heavily from the direct ritual that the rabbis used 2,000 years ago. They weren't making up and extrapolating and making new poems. They were doing it. They were doing the thing. Another question, how would you characterize this encounter with the angels when you go to the bathroom? Has anyone ever talked to angels before they go to the bathroom? Elaine, I saw your hand. You're muted.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I was just trying to find my cursor. I would say that what the encounter is about is I'm going to a place where you cannot accompany me, but I don't want to be abandoned by the presence of God. So I want to, like when it says, don't say go away, it says guard me and help me, right? Don't tell the angels leave, because they might do that. And you don't really want them to do that. Because you want to be sure they're there when you come out, so that you don't abandon that presence. And I think it's really a beautiful image.
Interesting. So there's a sense of we have these angels around us, and we don't want them to go away, even though, and there are some people actually who change, because it says, Shalom Aleichem Malachi Yasharei, right? The blessing, welcoming the angels, and the end is Seitchem L'Shalom Malachi Shalom, go in peace, angels. But we don't really want them to go away, right? So some people say Shuvchem L'Shalom, come back in peace to us, angels.
But that's interesting, because if you go to the mikveh and it's time for Kriyat Shema, there's it tells you about saying Kriyat Shema in the mikveh if you are in a certain level from the waist downwards, or something covered or something like that, when you can say, and some, and so on and so forth. So the Shema actually overrules a lot of many things which you wouldn't expect to, and that's a difference. But again, it's somewhere where you go alone. You don't normally go, accompanied as such.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's
like the bathroom, the mikvah has some, is a liminal space in terms of what you can do in it and what you can't. And apparently in the bathroom, certainly, unlike the mikvah, you're not supposed to say blessings. You have to wait till you get out of the bathroom. There's a law, by the way, in case you're wondering why, there's a law in Deuteronomy which says, make sure to take your poop out of the camp and bury it. Don't leave it in the camp, because God, the implication is that God doesn't want that smell, right? And so there's this great irony, or great odd thing, that by the time we get to the rabbis, they don't envision that any divine angel protecting you would want to go in where you're doing your business, which is it's an interesting thing. God is everywhere, but maybe he's not there in the bathroom with you.
There's only one prayer you say without having to wash your hands, without having to prepare yourself. When you open your eyes in the morning, the Moda Ani, where you don't need to fulfill Nagelvasser or all the various other things that one would normally do before you actually say holy words or make a blessing or do something. So you're thanking God for waking you up and you're awake in this world. You've had your sleep and your slumber, and now, so that's again, it's another essence. It's another different thing, but that's the first thing that one does before one says Antilat Yadayim or any of the other brachos, before you can actually get up and daven it without washing, without preparing yourself, what you would expect to do, when you wake up first thing.
That's right. I'm going to add a little twist in here, because we don't often think, whatever our brachas what we're saying in a day, there's not a lot in the siddur of just make sure that you know that you have an angelic retinue following you all day, right? We say it at the Shema L'Amitah, on the Shema at night. We say, B'Shem Hashem Elohei Yisrael, in the name of God, of Adonai, the God of Israel, at Mimini, Michael, Shmoli, Gabriel, there are these angels all around me who are protecting me while I sleep. But we don't often talk about the angelic retinue that's clearly manifest here in this blessing. The angels who are around you but won't come into the bathroom with you. So being in the presence of God isn't just about the king. There's a whole retinue. But let me add one more text that makes this retinue even more complex, and actually perhaps a little more of an uplift than just more people spying on me during the day. Okay? This is a favorite text of Rabbi Shai Held. And Sylvia, would you mind reading it? It's a short text. Just the Midrash Tehillim text.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, when a person travels a long way, a procession of angels walks before him and proclaims, make way for the icon of the Holy One, blessed be he. Wow.
That's an interesting midrash, right?
Yeah.
The word is actually very direct, ikonia. So to explain a little bit, in the Roman times, there would be processions of statues of great generals or of gods. And they would be paraded through the street to announce their greatness. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, when a person is traveling, that is like an angelic procession of an ikonia shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, an icon of God. That is to say that the human being is like a statue, or if you would, a tselem, an image of God. And every human being walks around with an angelic retinue saying, behold, make way for the image of God. Make way for the statue of God. It's the same thing where when I try to teach the image of God to teenagers or kids, I'll take out my driver's license, which has my picture, and I say to them, here's my driver's license, if you put it up on your wall, how would you feel? And if I hold it up, my driver's license is somewhere deep in this wallet, and they say, oh, they put it up on the wall, oh, it's a picture of me, oh, that looks good. That's wonderful. It's honoring me, even though it's not me, it's just a picture of me. But if I start to do that, and then people go, oh, you're going to rip your driver's license. Like, no, it's okay. But if you try to rip or damage that image, right, that's not actually hurting me. But it is as if you are disrespecting me by disrespecting the image of me. And so that's what it's like to be the image of God, is that we are like statues, pictures of God. That's why you can't bow down to idols, because you already have the image of God right in front of you. It's the human being. Now, Shai Held uses this text when he was talking. He talks a lot about, he has taught with this text about, do we really value all human life as this in our country, in terms of, he deals with police brutality issues and things, and how this applies to questions of big political questions and moral questions in America. But taking it back to our source here, how this sense of angels traveling with you change what it means to be in the presence of God?
Well, it says God is made, man is made in God's image. So that then takes the role of what, as you said, the icon, which is man, and man is the it's what God created, and the Torah says this many, many times. So maybe that is the connection, and that's what is meant by it. I don't know, but it's possible. It sounds likely.
Sylvia.
Could be an interesting thing, because we're yes, we're taught that we're made in the image of God, but we're not God. So what does this mean if the angels are going ahead of us, make way for the icon of God? Makes us feel more than we maybe are. Maybe we, and it could be very confusing for people to think, because I know one of the things that I was first taught about God when I stopped believing in God and started believing again was, just remember, there is a God and he's not you. So it could be very confusing. That's all I'm saying.
For sure. Elaine.
Well, I think it's interesting because in the earlier text, we learned that sort of God is everywhere all the time. And now we're saying God is everywhere all the time, manifested all in each other too. Each of us is a manifestation, not God, but is a manifestation, is an icon, because an icon isn't the actual thing, it's a representation. So each of us represents the presence of God in the world. And if we learn to look at each other like that, I can see why Shai Held likes this text, because I mean, that's an amazing way to think about the world.
It is a very profound thing to think that every person that you come in contact with is just like a statue of God with a bunch of angels carrying it to honor it, right? No matter a person's activities, that they are a human being, they are a statue of God. So for me, this, I think, it's interesting because the brachot brings up this question of angels, following us around. To me, this actually really changes the way what it means, to have the King of Kings in the room with us all the time, right? Because it's almost in a way like a mirror. Now, that's not to say that we are God. Actually, we're not, right? Because God ain't me. A statue of me, it isn't me, for sure. But that God's presence is actually mirroring back to me, aspects of my best self as a human being, or that God being with me. It's something that is of me and like me in the room, not just a foreign distant king, but the very one who sends angels to walk with me to say, you are my mini me, or whatever. Like, not that we're mini gods, we're not, but it's trying to get at what does it mean to be in B'Tselem, and what is the emotional valence to the rabbis of having God with them all the time, or having angels with them all the time. It's elevated somewhat when they understand that being B'Tselem Elohim is is ennobling, is gives life a beauty to it, because you are there's a part of God that is manifest in you. It's like it says in Pirkei Avot, right? I'm going to misquote it in the Hebrew, but the humankind is beloved because it knows that it is made in the image of God, right? That there's a belovedness with being made in the image of God. So, main point is that maybe for the rabbis, it's not just the sense that God is everywhere and like Evan Almighty, it's terrifying, or you should be ashamed of yourself all the time. That's how the Rema feels about it. It should lead you to shame and to be watchful, which is fine. But that actually is ennobling, because that's the same God that sends forward angels to proclaim your dignity and your special place in the world. So with that, in our last 20 minutes, let's pivot into the blessings. I'm not sure we're going to have time to go through all of these. The main point about this, I'm going to point out, and we're going to go to the blessing I want to zoom in on. Brachot 60b, if you look at it, it'll talk to you about going to sleep, and then it talks about waking up. I'll point out to you that the list of blessings here, if you know the traditional siddur, if you look in one, the blessings that God, who made me in the Orthodox siddur, it's Shelo Asani Goy, Shelo Asani Evet, Shelo Asani Isha, who did not make me a slave or a woman or a Gentile. Those are not in the Bavli. Those are not in the Babylonian Talmud at all. It goes straight to Pokeach Ivrim, which is the main thing we're going to look at today, who gives sight to the blind. So when the siddur was put together, it says in the Yerushalmi that Rabbi, I think it's Rabbi Yoshua would say these three things every day. Thank you, God, for not making me a non-Jew. Thank you, God, for not making me uncivilized, a boor. And thank you, God, for not making me a woman, which had to do with the fact that women aren't obligated in as many commandments. Although even that, if you look at scholars, look at that verse, it's not totally clear how that is meant to be conceived at that time. Here's the main point. Let's go, who gives sight to the blind. If I wanted to say, open my eyes in Hebrew, what would I say? If you're a little Hebrew. What is to open in Hebrew? It is, the word is poteach, right? Poteach et yadecha. Open your hands. And poteach einayim, literally, open my eyes. Poteach einayim. But this word that's used in Hebrew here, which we'll get to, oh, here it is. Here are the blessings formally, is pokeach ivrim, who gives sight to the blind. Yes, Elaine?
No, it's okay. Sorry.
So pokeach ivrim. So why is just at first glance, why do you think, and I'm moving on to the text of the traditional blessings, why do you think it's using, instead of God, poteach einayim, God who opens my eyes, why is it saying who gives sight to the blind?
It doesn't necessarily mean blind literally. Maybe it means blind that you are not of the faith, or you're not a believer. So to open your eyes to godly things is more general than literal.
Yeah. So maybe this is a metaphor. Maybe God's not going around opening blind people's eyes all the time. Maybe this is just a metaphor for something else. For sure. Other thoughts on why not just the basic poteach einayim? Because literally the Talmud says when you open your eyes, you should say this blessing. Well, we're going to follow Alex's intimation about this into parts of the Torah where the phrase pokeach ivrim is used. And it might give us a little more insight about what's going on here. Can I get a reader for... Elaine, would you read the Psalms source?
Certainly. Adonai restores sight to the blind. Adonai makes those who are bent stand straight. Adonai loves the righteous. Adonai watches over the stranger. He gives courage to the orphan and widow, but makes the path of the wicked tortuous.
Good. So what's the context here of, it says, Adonai pokeach ivrim, exactly, as we have it in the blessing. What's the context here? Is there a different or broader valence of pokeach ivrim in the context of this quote from Psalms?
Well, if you go to where it ends, to say, giving courage to the orphan and the widow, it's about, in general, providing strength that may not be there. So sight to the blind can be the ability to sort of see what's going on, see, and like Alex was talking about, less literally than am I a sighted person, but do I know? Do I understand? Can I see how the world works? And to make the bent stand straight, also in the morning blessings, to face the world confidently, and to be able to be righteous. And then it says, God watches the stranger, the orphan, and the widow, as we see many times. So providing strength to those who do not have it.
So there's
it said that the words are restore, which means somebody has lost something and it's being brought back. And that is probably faith. So if one restores their faith, or it's a low ebb, then instead of doing it literally, it's bringing it back again to restoring the faith. So you become blind for a certain period of time. So you're blind to your faith, blind to religion, blind to God, and then it's restored. Something makes you click, and your faith is being restored again. The same with basically most of these things. And where it goes even further, you're talking about bribes and things like that. You know, the Egel Zahav is a fine example of worshipping idols, basically, or being blind to bribes or one thing and another. So again, it's something that is with us today, as it was in the times of the giving of the Torah in Sinai. So it's the wicked thing that caused the Churban of the Beit HaMikdash and various other problems is bribery or corruption or being blind. So the restoration of her faith takes away the bribery and the corruption, and those of faith wouldn't be that way inclined. That's my perception of it.
Very good. Sylvia.
Kind of like that. My thought was, when Alex said stored, which made a lot of sense, when we say the moda ani, do we not say, thank you, ever-living ruler, for restoring my soul and compassion? It kind of harking back to when we thought that when we slept, our soul went somewhere else.
That's right. And there's a sense that where there is a lack, God is bringing something back. So where there is a lack of faith or lack of vision, a lack of equity, God is restoring something, whether it is, the stranger who has a lack of rights or protections, the bent who have a lack of, ability, the orphan and the widow who also have a lack of protection and well-being. There's a sense of restoring a lack. Very good. To move us forward to this bribes text, which is I think a really, and by the way, I owe this and down in these insights to Rabbi Eli Cantor, who taught about this verse in his for Parshat Mishpatim for Hadar this year. He points out this use of the term pokeach ivrim, v'shochad lo tikach ki hashochad ye'aver pikchim b'salev divrei tzadikim. Do not take bribes, for bribes blind the clear-sighted. Ye'aver pikchim, those who can see clearly. Those who are pokeach can see clearly, but bribery blinds that. And so bribery can be, of course, with money, right? That's obvious, so the obvious thing of bribes. But can I get a reader for the Ketubot source Matthew, would you mind reading just the Ketubot 105b, the broadening of the sense of what bribery is in the Talmud?
From the sages taught?
Yes.
The sages taught, and you shall take no bribe. It is not necessary to say bribery by means of money, however. Even verbal bribery, assisting by means of speech, is also prohibited. The halakha is derived from the fact that it is not written, and you shall take no profit.
Thank you. Thoughts on this source, and or what are the types of verbal bribery that you think the Talmud is speaking about?
Blackmail.
So blackmail, that's a more that's even an even deeper level of sin, right? When you're I'm going to do something bad to you. Elaine.
I think it could be promising someone. It doesn't have to be a monetary thing. If you'll look in this, if you'll do this way, I'll make a favor for you. It's like trading favors.
Exactly. It's like trading favors. And you can, by the way, you can look in the Talmud. It has lists of examples of ways it understands this. That when we treat people, because people do favors, and when you do a favor for someone, there's a sense of debt to them, right? Even if a little favors, big favors, it can create a sense of I owe this person something. And the world operates on people doing good things for one another. That's a good thing. But there's a question of how can someone be pikeach einayim? How can someone be clear-sighted, if they're being subject to favors? Elaine, go ahead.
Well, this is related. There's a text that I'm terrible at remembering where texts are, but in this whole discussion, it says you can't favor the rich or the poor. That is, you shouldn't judge based on the fact that you feel sorry for this person. And you shouldn't judge based on the fact that maybe they'll do something nice for you because they have power. So it's related to this, right? Judgments have to be clear-sighted and neutral and fair.
Very good. So that's a wonderful.
But it also tells you that when you go in front of a beis din has to be.
That's what I was talking about. Yes.
Yeah, a beis din has to be completely not connected with anybody that one tries or goes in front of them, and they should not know whether the person has money or power. But again, it is very, very difficult when people are known and they go in front of a bet din and they wave and said, I'm not going to give you your charity or going to support the bet din in the things that the moistus or the things that they are doing. So one has to have a beis din maybe from outside town. But again, these are problems, and this is exactly what's been, put down. You shouldn't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, and there's various other things. Baruchas talk about the goring of an ox and the various things, and a hole and the stumbling block, and how you should deal with it, and what the reparation is, and so on and so forth. So it's all part and part, comes from the same source, I presume.
Absolutely. So I Alex and Elaine, I love what you've added in that there are you can't let your relationship to someone in judgment make judgment not being done because you happen to have done favors for those people. And indeed, perhaps when we're looking at this personally, looking out into the world, and this is what Rabbi Cantor teaches, is that we should be pokeach. Where God is pokeach ivrim. God is awakens the eyes, to see things clearly as a good judge does. Right? And there are so many ways in which we may treat people differently, depending on how we have done favors for them, or they've done favors for us, or they're part of this network of people in our lives and not others. There are parts of this in terms of how people are treated in the justice system, people are treated in all aspects of life, of whether people are being pokeach ivrim, or whether they have open eyes and are judging people fairly, or they're being influenced by favors or verbal bribery, as the Talmud would say. So there's a real opportunity, Rabbi Cantor teaches, and I'll add in this blessing when we say pokeach ivrim, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim, before the King of Kings, who is pokeach ivrim, who sees clear-sightedly and opens the eyes of people to see clear-sightedly, that we too can open our eyes, that we are not acting in the world by virtue of bribes or verbal bribery, that we are being pokeach ivrim in ways that are restorative, to relationships, restorative in perhaps in political acts, in tzedakah in the world, that it's really actually a call to good action. And I wanted to conclude with my last little video clip, because I promised you pop culture for the last 4 weeks. This is a movie about William Wilberforce, who maybe Alex knows because he's a Brit. William Wilberforce was the man who helped, MP of Parliament, who helped slavery be outlawed in Britain. And there is a brilliant movie called Amazing Grace that was recently in 2006, and it features a lot of a young Benedict Cumberbatch. If you're a British actors person, a lot of young people from across the hit list of the British actors. But it deals with the process of how William Wilberforce brought the abolition of slavery in 1807 to a head and abolished it in the British Empire. And one of the sort of subtle characters here was his minister. His name was John Newton. And John Newton, you all know one of his very famous melodies called, or poems at least, called Amazing Grace. Because John Newton was an Irishman who was involved in the slave trade. And he was actually, not only was he involved in the slave trade because I think he worked out of Liverpool for a while, which was big in the triangle trade. And then he himself was enslaved by an African person in Sierra Leone because, black Africans were selling their brethren into slavery to white people in Europe and in North America. It was a whole industry. But John Newton had a conversion through his experience and realizing, wow, this is horrible. This is must be against what God wants for the world. And he became one of the leading abolitionists of the British Empire. From, I think his pulpit was in Olney, for Americans, not Maryland. This is Olney in England. And I will close by just showing you a clip of, this is a scene from Amazing Grace, where William Wilberforce, who was actually a parishioner of John Newton. John Newton was his pastor, was his priest in the Anglican Church. Him singing Amazing Grace by John Newton before this recalcitrant legislature that's thinking about whether or not it's going to abolish slavery. So let me stop one share and start another. There we go. There we go.
Something of a singer.
I do remember.
So I think I'm going to go and sing them a song.
Silence! Silence! Sound like a chorus of bloody tomcats. Now, let me introduce you to somebody who does it properly.
I would like to dedicate this song to my honourable friend, His Grace the Duke of Clarence. It was written by my old preacher. He was captain of a slave ship for 20 years. He repented his sins, and then he wrote this song. Amazing grace, how
Time for heart for the merchant boys.
Sings the Archcop. How sweet the sound my
saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now
So we think of this, we know this is spiritual. This is the hard, one of the main core repertoire of African American churches and all over America. But this is a really a man who was pokeach ivrim. He was blind. He was part of this horrible structural economic institution of slavery, and then he himself became a slave, and he realized, wow, this is horrendous. And he ended up becoming part of the engine that changed that system, began to make greater changes in the world and getting rid of slavery and moving us in a more godly way in the world. And that was, for him, Pokeach Ivrim. So I hope that that inspires your Pokeach Ivrim when you pray. And I want to thank you and thank the Jewish Collaborative and thank Rabbi Tilchin for these last 4 weeks of Iyun Tefillah, Asher Ein Lo Shi'ur, which is, we can never get enough of getting deep in prayer. So thank you for journeying with me for these past 4 weeks.
And Matt, remember, on every dollar it says, "In God we trust."
I know. Thank you.
That's right. And so I, first of all, thank you, everybody. It's been so fun to hear you share your thoughtful insights with Daniel. Not a lot of people talk about prayer. Not a lot of people even kind of care about it. So I think it's my favorite topic. I've learned so much from you, Matt, all of which I'm going to steal in my own teaching. Thank you. And just to let you know, what's the next 4 weeks for ALI? I bet you're all going, I don't know. Rabbi Daniel Levine is back. I don't know if you're Daniel fans, but I'm just, I'm not saying it's not even a toss if you can't compare great people like Matt Austerklein, Daniel Levine, but really the young scholarship of today and tomorrow. And he's going to be actually doing a deep dive into different Zionistic theories, which are feeding into the troubles with what's going on in the modern day state of Israel. 4 weeks, and I hope you'll be able to join us. Alex, I'm going to ask you and Matt to stay on if you can to this so that we can begin talking about our big adventure next summer. And just to get oriented, and if nothing else, set up another meeting for us to talk about that. Susan Glass, I just want to say, we are planning a trip to the UK to study the great choral traditions of the synagogue and churches in that area. And that might be something that would interest you next summer. So you have plenty of time to plan. And
I love to travel.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm not here. I don't hear what Susan said. Did anybody else?
Oh, Susan.